The words hit me like cold water across my face. Elena, you've completely ruined those kids. They're spoiled beyond redemption. My brother David stood in my kitchen, arms crossed, watching my twin daughters wash dishes after our family barbecue. His voice carried that particular tone of superiority that had grated on my nerves since we were children. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from. And if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. I forced myself to keep arranging leftover burgers in containers, my hands trembling slightly as I tried to maintain my composure. Maya and Sofia, my 17-year-old twins, continued scrubbing plates without looking up, but I could see the tension in their shoulders. They'd heard every word. Spoiled, David repeated, shaking his head dramatically. Look at them. Designer clothes, expensive phones, probably never worked a day in their lives. You failed them as a mother, Elena. They'll never survive in the real world. The irony wasn't lost on me. There were my daughters, voluntarily cleaning up after a family gathering of 15 people, while David's own son Marcus sat in the living room playing video games, having abandoned his plate on the coffee table the moment he finished eating. But pointing that out would only escalate things, and I'd learned long ago that defending myself to David was like trying to hold water in my bare hands. My sister Carmen snorted from the breakfast nook where she sat filing her nails. I mean, Elena, you do spoil them? Private tutors, music lessons, those expensive summer camps? No wonder they act like little princesses. They don't act like anything, I replied quietly, my voice barely above a whisper. They're good kids. Good kids? David laughed, the sound sharp and mocking. When's the last time they had a real job? When have they ever faced any real challenges? You've wrapped them in bubble wrap their entire lives. I watched my daughters exchange a look, and Maya's jaw tightened. Sofia reached over and squeezed her sister's hand, a gesture so swift and subtle that only I caught it. They'd developed their own silent communication system over the years, especially when it came to dealing with family criticism. The truth was, David had been building up to this moment all evening. From the second he arrived at our monthly family barbecue, he'd been making little jabs. Comments about the girls' clothes being too nice for a casual get-together. Remarks about how they'd probably never had to earn their own spending money. Snide observations about their pampered lifestyle. What my brother didn't know, what none of my family knew, was the real story behind those spoiled children he was so quick to judge. I met their father, Jonathan, during my sophomore year of college. He was brilliant, charming, and came from a family that made my middle-class upbringing look practically impoverished. When I got pregnant during our senior year, his parents made it clear that a girl from my background wasn't suitable for their son's future. They offered me money to disappear. Jonathan, to his credit, chose us over their ultimatum. For 2 years, we struggled together. Jonathan's family had cut him off completely, and we lived in a tiny apartment, scraping by on his entry-level engineer salary and my part-time work. When the girls were born, everything changed. Premature by 6 weeks, Sofia spent the first month of her life in the NICU. The medical bills were astronomical. Jonathan worked himself to exhaustion, taking on extra projects, weekend work, anything to keep us afloat. Then came the accident. A drunk driver ran a red light on a rainy Tuesday evening. Jonathan died instantly. The girls were barely 2 years old. His parents, the same people who had once offered me money to disappear, suddenly wanted to be involved. They felt guilty, I suppose. Or maybe they just couldn't bear the thought of their son's children living in poverty. The life insurance settlement was substantial, and they added to it significantly. They set up trust funds for the girls' education and living expenses, with one condition: I had to sign agreements that limited my access to the money and ensured it was used specifically for the girls' benefit. Suddenly, we went from scraping by to having more money than I'd ever dreamed of. But it came with a price. Every purchase, every decision was scrutinized by trustees. I had to provide receipts, justify expenses, prove that everything was for the girls' development and well-being. The irony was brutal. My family saw the nice clothes, the private tutors, the music lessons, and assumed I was frivolously spoiling my children. They had no idea that every penny was accounted for, that I actually lived quite modestly myself, working 2 jobs to maintain my independence and ensure we didn't rely entirely on the trust funds. What they also didn't see were the late nights, when I helped the girls with homework, the way I pushed them to excel not because success was expected, but because I wanted them to honor their father's memory. They didn't see the chores, the volunteer work, the summer jobs at local nonprofits that the girls had insisted on taking despite not needing the money. "Mom makes us earn everything," Maya had once told her teacher when asked about their after-school activities. "The trust pays for lessons, but we have to maintain our grades and do community service hours to keep them." But my family only saw the surface. They saw designer backpacks and assumed entitlement. They saw private tutoring and assumed laziness. They saw confidence and independence and labeled it arrogance. David was still talking, his voice getting louder and more animated. "Mark my words, Elena. When these girls hit the real world, they're going to crash and burn. They have no work ethic, no understanding of struggle. You've done them a tremendous disservice." Carmen nodded enthusiastically. "Remember how we grew up? Mom made us work for everything. Remember your first job at the diner, Elena? 16, years old, coming home with your feet aching and your clothes smelling like grease. That built character." I did remember. I remembered working 30 hours a week while maintaining honor roll grades. I remembered turning down social events because I couldn't afford them. I remembered wearing the same 3 outfits to school on rotation because we couldn't afford more. "Maybe that's exactly what they need," David continued. "A dose of reality. A minimum wage job. Some real responsibility." Maya's head snapped up, her dark eyes flashing. "Uncle David..." "Maya," I warned quietly. I knew that look. She'd inherited her father's passionate streak and had never been good at backing down. From a fight. "No, Mom. I want to hear what he thinks about work ethic." Maya set down the dish she'd been washing and turned to face David fully. "Please, Uncle David, tell us more about responsibility." Sofia shot her sister a warning look, but Maya was already in motion. When my daughter got an idea in her head, nothing could stop her. David seemed pleased to have an audience. "Well, for starters, you girls have never had to work for anything. Everything's been handed to you on a silver platter. You have no idea what it means to earn something." "Interesting," Maya said, her voice deceptively calm. Sofia moved to stand beside her sister, presenting a united front that reminded me so much of their father, it made my chest ache. "When I was your age," David continued, warming to his subject, "I was working 20 hours a week at the hardware store while playing varsity football and maintaining a B average. That's what built character. That's what prepared me for success." What David conveniently left out of his narrative was that our parents had paid for his truck, his insurance, his gas, and most of his college expenses. His character-building job at the hardware store was arranged by our father's golf buddy and consisted mainly of organizing inventory in air-conditioned comfort. "Maya," I said again, more firmly this time. I could see the storm gathering in, her eyes, and I knew my daughter well enough to know she was about to unleash something that couldn't be taken back. But Sofia spoke instead, her voice quiet but clear. "Uncle David, what kind of work do you think builds the most character?" He smiled condescendingly. "Physical work, service work, something that keeps you humble, something that teaches you the value of $1. "I see," Sofia nodded thoughtfully. "And you think we've never experienced anything like that?" "I know you haven't," David said firmly. "Look around this kitchen, girls. Everything top of the line. Your mother's never made you want for anything. You probably can't even imagine what it's like to be truly hungry or worried about money." The kitchen fell silent except for the hum of the dishwasher. I could feel the tension building like pressure before a storm. My daughters exchanged another look, and I saw something pass between them that I couldn't quite identify. "You're right. About one thing, Uncle David," Maya said finally. "We've been very fortunate." David looked triumphant. "Finally, some honesty. But you're wrong about the work ethic part," Sofia added quietly. "Oh, really?" David's voice dripped with skepticism. "And what work have you two pampered princesses ever done?" Maya walked over to the kitchen island where her backpack sat. She unzipped the front pocket and pulled out a small, worn notebook. "Would you like to see?" I frowned, wondering what she was doing. The girls had never mentioned keeping any kind of work journal. "See what?" David laughed. "Your diary?" "Our work log," Sofia said simply. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. We've kept track of every hour we've volunteered, every job we've done, every way we've given back since we were 12. Maya opened the notebook and began reading in a clear, steady voice. Volunteers at the Downtown Soup Kitchen, June 2019. To present. 237 hours serving meals, cleaning, organizing food drives. She turned a page. Tutoring underprivileged kids at the community center, September 2020 to present. 180 hours, helping children with reading and math skills. Another page turn. Ocean cleanup volunteers, monthly participation since 2021. 64 hours removing trash from local beaches. David's smug expression was beginning to falter. Carmen had stopped filing her nails and was listening intently. Sofia took the notebook from her sister. Habitat for Humanity, summer 2022 and 2023. 72 hours of construction work, painting, landscaping. Working at the animal shelter, Maya continued. Walking dogs, cleaning kennels, assisting with adoptions. 90 hours and counting. Delivering meals to elderly shut-ins through Meals on Wheels, Sofia added. 56 hours, every weekend for 8 months. I stared at my daughters in amazement. I knew about some of their volunteer work. I'd driven them to many of these activities, but I hadn't realized they'd been keeping such detailed records, or that the hours had added up to so much. Maya took the notebook back and flipped to a section near the back. And then there are the jobs. Jobs? Carmen asked weakly. Babysitting for the Johnson family next door, Sofia explained. Maya and I split the duties. 4 hours every Friday night for 2 years. We saved every penny. We earned for college expenses Mom wouldn't have to cover. Pet sitting and dog walking for 12 families in the neighborhood, Maya added. We built up a regular client base through referrals. Lawn care for elderly residents, Sofia continued. Mowing, weeding, basic landscaping. We undercut professional services and put all the money into our college funds. David's face had gone very pale. Carmen was staring at the twins with her mouth slightly open, but Maya wasn't finished. Camp counselors at the YMCA every summer since we turned 15. 40 hours a week for 10 weeks, working with kids from low-income families. Retail associate at the vintage clothing store downtown, Sofia said. Weekends during the school year, helping customers, managing inventory, learning about business operations. And our favorite, Maya said with a slight smile, working as servers at catered events through Mom's friend's catering company. You want to talk about hard physical work? Try carrying trays for 6 hours straight in heels. I felt my eyes fill with tears. I had known my daughters were involved in various activities, but I hadn't realized how seriously they'd taken everything, how deliberately they'd sought out opportunities to challenge themselves. We kept this log, Sofia explained, because we wanted to track our growth. Not because anyone made us, but because we wanted to understand what different types of work taught us. Maya closed the notebook and looked directly at David. So, when you say we're spoiled and have never worked, I'm wondering what your definition of work actually is. The kitchen was dead silent. David's mouth opened and closed several times, but no sound came out. Carmen was studying her nail file like it held the secrets of the universe. The trust fund pays for our education and basic needs, Sofia continued, her voice calm but firm. Everything else, our volunteer work, our jobs, our character, that's something we built ourselves. With Mom's guidance and support, Maya added, shooting me a grateful look. She's the one who taught us that having advantages means we have a responsibility to help others. She's the one who made sure we understood the value of work long before we ever got our first paycheck. I wiped tears from my eyes, overwhelmed by pride and love for these incredible young women I'd somehow raised. They'd turned the tables on David so completely that he looked like he wanted to crawl under the kitchen island and disappear. I didn't know, David stammered finally. No, Maya said quietly. You didn't. You saw nice clothes and expensive tutoring and assumed we were lazy. You saw opportunities and assumed we were ungrateful. But you never asked. Sofia nodded. You never asked about the nights we spent studying at the community center so we could help other kids with their homework. You never asked about the weekends we spent building houses or cleaning beaches. You just made assumptions. The twins moved back to the sink and resumed washing dishes as if nothing had happened. But something had definitely happened. The entire dynamic of the room had shifted. David stood there looking smaller somehow, while my daughters seemed to have grown, in stature even as they went back to their quiet work. I wanted to hug them both, to tell them how proud I was, but I also didn't want to break the moment. They'd handled themselves with such grace, such dignity, that any words from me would have felt insufficient. Carmen cleared her throat awkwardly. Well, I should probably get going. Early day tomorrow. David nodded mutely and followed her toward the door. He paused in the doorway and looked back at the girls, then at me. Elena, I owe you all an apology. No, Maya said without turning around. You owe yourself some self-reflection. After they left, the kitchen fell into a comfortable quiet. The girls finished the dishes while I put away the last of the leftovers. Finally, Sofia broke the silence. We should probably tell you about the college letters now, shouldn't we, Maya? My head snapped up. What college letters? Maya grinned and dried her hands on a towel. The ones that came today while you were at work. The reason we were so calm about Uncle David's little speech. Letters? I repeated. As in plural? 5 each, actually, Sofia said casually, though I could see the excitement dancing in her eyes. My heart started racing. And? Instead of answering, Maya walked over to the kitchen table where a stack of official-looking envelopes sat neatly arranged. They must have placed them there while I was dealing with David, and in all the chaos, I hadn't noticed. We thought we should wait until the family left to tell you, Sofia explained. We wanted it to be just us. I approached the table slowly, hardly daring to breathe. Each envelope bore the logo of a prestigious university: Harvard, MIT, Stanford, Yale, Princeton, Columbia, Caltech, more than I had ever dared hope for. Maya picked up the first envelope. Should we start with the good news or the really good news? I sank into a chair, my legs suddenly feeling weak. There's good news? Mom, Sofia said gently, sitting beside me and taking my hand. There's only good news. And as my daughters began opening envelope after envelope, each containing acceptance letters that exceeded my wildest dreams, I realized that David had been right about one thing. My girls were absolutely going to be just fine in the real world. In fact, they were going to run it. Maya picked up the first envelope with trembling hands, though she tried to appear calm. The Harvard seal gleamed under our kitchen lights, and my breath caught in my throat. I had driven the girls to their interviews, helped them with essays, but part of me had always worried that our small city background might work against them. "Harvard," Maya announced, sliding her finger under the flap. She unfolded the letter, her eyes scanning quickly before a slow smile spread across her face. Full scholarship, academic and need-based combined. My hand flew to my mouth. "Maya." "And," she continued, her voice getting stronger, "they want me for their biomedical engineering program, with a guaranteed research position freshman year." Sofia rolled her eyes at her sister. "Show off. Let me go next." She picked up her envelope from Stanford. "Computer science with a concentration in AI ethics. Also full scholarship, plus they're inviting me to join their accelerated PhD track." I felt dizzy. These weren't just acceptances. These were dreams coming true beyond anything I'd imagined. But the girls weren't finished. Maya opened her second letter. MIT, Bioengineering. Again, they're offering me a spot in their medical device innovation lab. Yale, Sofia announced, waving her letter. They want me for their combined computer science and philosophy program. Apparently, my essay on technology ethics really resonated with them. Back and forth they went, each letter more incredible than the last. Princeton, Columbia, Caltech, every single envelope contained not just an acceptance, but offers of full scholarships, research opportunities, honors programs, special tracks designed for exceptional students. I watched my daughters reveal each acceptance with a mixture of calm pride and barely contained excitement, and I realized something that took my breath away. They hadn't been as shocked as I was. They'd known. Deep down, they'd known they were capable of this. "How?" I whispered finally. "I mean, I knew you were brilliant, but this is extraordinary." Maya and Sofia exchanged one of their twin looks again. Sofia spoke first. "Remember Dr. Rodriguez from the community center?" I nodded. Dr. Rodriguez ran the tutoring program where the girls volunteered. "She's actually a retired MIT professor," Maya continued. "She moved here to be near her grandchildren, but she kept connections with her former colleagues. When she saw what Sofia and I were capable of, she started making calls. She helped us understand that our volunteer work, our jobs, everything we'd been doing, it wasn't just keeping us busy," Sofia explained. "It was building a portfolio. She helped us see that our applications weren't just about test scores." Maya picked up her notebook again, the one she'd shown David earlier. "Every hour we logged wasn't just about helping others. It was about learning leadership, developing empathy, understanding real-world problems that engineering and technology could solve. The soup kitchen taught us about food insecurity and resource allocation," Sofia added. "The animal shelter introduced us to biological systems and care protocols. The beach cleanups showed us environmental engineering challenges firsthand." I stared at my daughters, seeing them with new eyes. While I'd been worrying about whether they were too sheltered, they'd been building the exact kind of diverse, meaningful experience that elite universities craved. "Dr. Rodriguez introduced us to her former colleagues over video calls," Maya continued. "She arranged for us to present our volunteer work as research projects. The beach cleanup data we collected? That became a paper on microplastics that 3 professors helped us publish. Our tutoring work led to developing a new app that helps kids with learning disabilities," Sofia said. "It's being beta tested in schools across the state now." My mind reeled. When did you have time for all this? How did I not know? The twins looked slightly guilty. "We wanted to surprise you," Maya admitted. "And honestly, we weren't sure any of it would work out. We didn't want to get your hopes up. Plus," Sofia added with a grin, "we figured you had enough to worry about with Uncle David's opinions about our work ethic." I laughed despite my shock, tears streaming down my face. Your father would be so proud. We know, Maya said softly. Dr. Rodriguez told us that everything we'd learned, from Dad's death, from managing the trust funds, from you working so hard to keep us grounded, it all came through in our applications. The admissions committees weren't just seeing privileged kids with good grades. They were seeing survivors who used their advantages to lift others up. Sofia nodded. One interviewer told me she'd never seen such authentic community engagement from someone our age. She said most wealthy kids volunteer somewhere nice and safe. We actually got our hands dirty. I thought about David's words earlier, about how the girls were spoiled and unprepared for the real world. If only he knew that these spoiled children were about to enter some of the most competitive academic environments in the world, armed with more practical experience than most graduate students. There's something else, Maya said, reaching for a different set of papers. Professor Johnson at Stanford. He runs their medical device lab. He wants to meet with both of us this summer. He thinks our combination of technical skills and real-world experience could lead to some breakthrough work in accessible medical technology. And Dr. Chen at Harvard, Sofia added, she thinks my work with learning disabilities could revolutionize educational software. She's already talking about having me collaborate with their graduate students. I looked around our kitchen, the same space where David had declared my children failures, and felt a peculiar mix of vindication and sadness. Not sadness about the girls' success, that was pure joy, but sadness that my brother had been so blinded by his assumptions that he'd missed seeing the remarkable young women his nieces had become. You know, Maya said thoughtfully, Uncle David wasn't entirely wrong. I raised an eyebrow. How so? We are privileged, Sofia explained. The trust funds, the nice clothes, the tutoring. We've had advantages other kids don't get. But what he didn't understand, Maya continued, is that you taught us that privilege comes with responsibility. Every opportunity we've been given, every dollar spent on our education, every door that money opened, you made sure we used it to open doors for others too. I felt my heart swell with pride. You two did that yourselves. With your guidance? Sofia insisted. You could have let us coast. You could have let us become those spoiled rich kids Uncle David assumed we were. Instead, you made us work harder because we have more. Maya nodded. Remember when we were 13 and complained about volunteering at the soup kitchen? You told us that people who have enough to eat have a responsibility to make sure others can eat too. I did remember. It had been a constant balance trying to keep them humble and grateful, while also allowing them to enjoy the opportunities their father's death had paradoxically provided. So what happens now? I asked, staring at the pile of acceptance letters. The twins looked at each other, and I could practically see them communicating telepathically. Well, Maya said slowly, Sofia's going to Stanford. And Maya's going to Harvard, Sofia finished. My heart dropped a little. They'd never been apart for more than a week in their entire lives. But before I could say anything, Maya continued. But we're both deferring for a year. What? I nearly shouted. Sofia grinned. Dr. Rodriguez connected us with a program that places students in developing countries to work on infrastructure projects. We'll be in Guatemala, helping to install water purification systems in rural villages. It's perfect, Maya explained. I'll learn about biomedical applications in resource-limited settings. Sofia will work on sustainable technology solutions, and we'll both get the kind of real-world experience that will make us better scientists. I stared at them, torn between terror and awe. My baby girls planning to spend a year in Guatemala, using their academic brilliance to help others. Plus, Sofia added with a mischievous smile, we figure Uncle David will probably have a heart attack when he finds out we're voluntarily going to one of those character-building experiences he's always talking about. We all laughed, and I realized that David's judgment, as much as it had stung, had ultimately been irrelevant. My daughters had known who they were long before he tried to tell them what they weren't. As we sat around the kitchen table, looking at acceptance letters from the most prestigious universities in the world, I thought about the journey that had brought us here. The late nights, the sacrifices, the constant balance between providing opportunities and maintaining values. My phone buzzed with a text message. I glanced at it and saw it was from David. "Elena, I owe you and the girls a real apology. Could we talk?" I showed the text to the twins. Maya shrugged. He can apologize if he wants, but his opinion never mattered anyway. Sofia nodded. "We know who we are, Mom. We've always known." Later that evening, after the twins had gone to bed, I sat alone in the kitchen with their acceptance letters spread before me. I picked up my phone and scrolled to a photo from last year. The girls covered in paint after a day working with Habitat for Humanity, exhausted but beaming. I thought about Jonathan, about the dreams we'd had for our children, about the future we'd planned that was cut so short. He would have been proud, I knew, not just of their academic achievements, but of the women they'd become. David had called them spoiled, but I knew better. They weren't spoiled. They were prepared to take their advantages and multiply them for the benefit of others, prepared to use their intelligence and privilege to solve real problems, prepared to honor their father's memory by living lives of purpose and impact. My daughters weren't spoiled. They were ready to change the world. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out.